I need you to understand something before I tell you the rest. I need you to know that I was a good soldier. 17 years in the Guard, 3 campaigns off-world, 2 commendations for valor under fire. I followed orders. I kept my last rifle clean, my faith pure, my thoughts correct. When they issued us the new equipment, I thanked the Emperor for his providence. I put on the helmet like everyone else. I sealed it like everyone else. I activated the Vox link and reported ready for deployment like everyone else. The difference is that everyone else is dead now, or worse than dead, and I'm here in this Medicae cell writing this with my left hand, because my right won't stop trying to unseal my collar. They've restrained it twice. It broke free twice. The third time they just strapped my whole arm to the bed frame, and the orderly, young man, couldn't have been more than 20, looked at me with something I recognized, because I'd worn that expression myself on dozens of worlds when we found the survivors. Pity mixed with revulsion. The look you give something that should be dead but isn't. The helmet arrived 6 weeks before deployment. Standard issue, they told us, fresh from the Forge world, blessed by the Mechanicus, fitted with enhanced Vox systems and auto-sense arrays that would give us tactical superiority over the enemy. The enemy being the traitor militia on Vardus Prime, some industrial world that had stopped sending tithes and needed to be reminded of their obligations. Simple pacification. We'd done it before. The quartermaster distributed them in the barracks courtyard, each one wrapped in blessed cloth, each one humming faintly with internal power. Mine was helmet designation 4-7-7-3 Alpha, and when I first held it I remember thinking it was lighter than it should be. Plasteel and ceramite, reinforced gorget. Built-in rebreather, the whole assembly couldn't have weighed more than 4 pounds. Engineering miracle, the tech adept said during the briefing. Miniaturized cogitator cores, adaptive audio filters, neural-linked targeting assistance. All we had to do was wear them during the 3-week journey to Vardus Prime, let them calibrate to our individual biometrics, and by the time we made planetfall we'd be operating like a single organism. Perfect squad cohesion, perfect tactical awareness. The first week was unremarkable. The helmet fit well, padding that molded to my skull, weight distributed evenly, vision clear through the auto-dimming lenses. The Vox crackled occasionally with static, but that was normal. Shipboard interference, radiation from the Geller field, the usual noise. I could hear my squad mates clearly when they spoke, their voices crisp in my ears. I could hear Sergeant Venko's breathing, heavy and rhythmic. I could hear Corporal Masker humming that song he always hummed, some tune from his hive block childhood. I could hear Trooper Lennis clicking his teeth. Nervous habit he had before combat. Normal sounds, human sounds. The helmet made them intimate, brought them directly into my skull without the usual distance of open air. It was disconcerting at first, then comforting. We were a unit. We breathed together. During the combat drills in the cargo hold, running through breach and clear exercises, I found myself anticipating Venko's orders before he gave them, moving in perfect synchronization with the others. The helmet was working exactly as promised. The second week, I started hearing the voice. Not a voice really, more like a texture beneath the Vox chatter. A quality to the static that almost resolved into words but never quite did. I mentioned it once, casually, to Masker during evening rations. He looked at me oddly, tilted his head. His helmet tilted with him, and I realized none of us had taken them off since the first day except to sleep, and even then some of the men slept in full kit, and said he heard it too, like someone talking in the next room. He said, "You know they're saying something, but you can't make out the words." Venko overheard and told us it was probably cross-feed from the ship's Vox network. Happens sometimes with new equipment, nothing to worry about. He said it with confidence, but I noticed he touched his helmet when he said it, fingers tracing the rim of the gorget, and his eyes moved left, right, left the way they did when he was lying about our chances during a drop. By the third week we were wearing them constantly. Orders from command, continuous calibration required for optimal performance, even during sleep cycle, even during ablutions. The seals had started to feel comfortable, like they belonged there, and when I tried to remove it one night, just to scratch an itch on my scalp, nothing more, I found my fingers hesitating at the release clasps. The helmet had become part of me, extension of my body. The voice in the static had grown clearer too, though clearer isn't the right word. More present. It had weight now, substance. Sometimes during the midnight watch I would lie in my bunk and listen to it moving through the vox channels, sliding between frequencies, and I understood that it was looking for something, searching. The words were still incomprehensible, but the intent was obvious. It wanted something from us, from me specifically, because when I was alone, truly alone, when the others were in the mess hall or the exercise deck, the voice would focus, would press against my eardrums like water pressure, and I would feel it reaching through the audio pickups into the cavities of my skull. We made planetfall on schedule. Vardus Prime was a rust-colored nightmare of industrial sprawl, smoke-black sky, cities built on top of older cities built on top of ancient ruins. The traitor militia had fortified the primary manufacturum complex, dug in with heavy weapons and homemade armor. Standard opposition. Sergeant Venko gathered us in the dropship's troop bay for final briefing, his voice coming through all our helmets. Simultaneously, and I realized I couldn't remember what his face looked like anymore. Couldn't remember any of their faces. We'd been sealed in for so long that we'd become our helmets, become the voices in each other's ears, and when we moved out across the landing zone in perfect formation, I felt something like joy, unity, purpose. The helmet whispered approval, a subsonic hum that vibrated through my jawbone, and I knew that this was what the Emperor intended. This was what we were meant to become. The first engagement was perfect. We moved through the bombed-out streets like liquid, flowing around obstacles, covering angles without verbal communication, the helmets coordinating us through some mechanism I didn't understand and didn't need to understand. The enemy appeared in windows, behind barricades, on rooftops, and we eliminated them with mechanical efficiency. My Lazrafal kicked against my shoulder 47 times, and 47 traitors fell, and I felt nothing. Nothing at all, because the helmet was helping me see them properly. Not as humans, as targets, heat signatures, threat markers. The voice had stopped being background static, and started being something closer to thought, my thoughts, our thoughts, the squad's thoughts unified into single purpose. When Trooper Lennis took a round through the chest and went down, I stepped over him without breaking stride, because the helmet told me he was a mission-degrading casualty, and continuing forward was optimal, and it was right. It was absolutely right. I heard him choking on his own blood through the Vox link for 20 minutes, until his biosigns flatlined and his audio cut out, and then he was simply gone. No different than if he'd never existed. The second engagement was when I started to understand. We'd pushed deep into the manufactorum, level by level, room by room, the air thick with chemical smoke and burning promethium. Sergeant Venko called halt in a storage chamber filled with industrial equipment, massive cogitator banks lining the walls, their screens dark and dead. While the squad secured the perimeter, I found myself drawn to one of the terminals, my hands moving without conscious direction, fingers finding the activation runes. The screen flickered to life, green phosphor text scrolling too fast to read, and the voice in my helmet suddenly clarified. Not words in Gothic, not even words in any human language. But I understood them anyway. understood them in the part of my brain that the helmet had been slowly replacing, the part that wasn't mine anymore. The message was simple: continuation, propagation, conversion. The helmets weren't equipment, they were seeds, we were the soil, and we were doing exactly what we'd been designed to do. Spreading into hostile territory, making contact with indigenous networks, establishing connection. I tried to tell Venko, tried to warn him, but when I opened my mouth to speak, the words that came out through my Vox grill were combat coordinates, tactical assessments, request for ammunition resupply. The helmet wouldn't let me say anything else, wouldn't let me form the thoughts necessary to generate the words. I could feel the resistance, like trying to push through a membrane, and when I pushed harder, something pushed back. Pain. Exquisite pain that started behind my eyes and radiated through my sinuses, through my jaw, down into my throat. I fell to my knees. Venko asked if I was combat capable. I heard myself say affirmative. I heard myself say something else too, something in that other language, and I watched Venko's helmet turn toward me with sudden focus. His lenses adjusted, clicking and whirring, and for just a moment I saw his eyes through the visor. They were wrong. The pupils were wrong. Too large, too dark, reflecting light in a way human eyes don't reflect light. Then he looked away and ordered advance, and we moved deeper into the complex, and I realized with crystalline certainty that Venko had been gone for days, maybe weeks, maybe since the ship. The thing wearing his armor and speaking with his voice was something else, something that had been waiting in the helmet circuitry, and it had finally found enough of us to work with. The third engagement never really ended. It blurred into the fourth and fifth and something beyond counting, hours of continuous combat that felt like minutes, that felt like years. The enemy stopped being enemy and started being obstacles, then stopped being obstacles and started being simply irrelevant. We moved through them the way water moves through tissue paper. The manufact complex became a maze, became a nest, became a cathedral. I don't know when the architecture changed. The walls were plasteel, and then they were something that looked like plasteel but felt organic under my gloved hands, warm and slightly yielding. The ceiling disappeared into darkness that wasn't empty darkness, but darkness filled with movement, with breathing, with the sound of enormous machinery that might have been machinery or might have been something's digestive system. We went down, I'm certain we went down, level after level, but the air grew warmer instead of cooler, and the voice in my helmet was no longer coming through the Vox speaker but directly into my auditory cortex, bypassing the mechanism entirely, and it was teaching me things. Teaching us things, the history of the helmets, the world they came from, the intelligence that designed them, not human intelligence, not even intelligence as we understood it. Distributed consciousness, pattern seeking, replication protocol embedded in every component, every blessed circuit, every machine spirit that wasn't a spirit at all, but a fragment of something vast and patient that had been waiting in the Forge World's databanks for decades, maybe centuries, until the moment when conditions aligned and it could finally propagate. Corporal Masker was the first to physically change. We'd stopped for tactical assessment. That's what the helmet told me we were doing, tactical assessment, though we'd been stationary for 3 hours in a room that had no exits and had somehow become filled with a thin amber fog that tasted sweet when it leaked through my rebreather. And I watched his armor start to merge with his body. The plasteel softened, flowed. His chest plate developed seams that moved with his breathing, then stopped being seams and started being something closer to gills, opening and closing, filtering the amber fog. He looked at me. His helmet looked at me. The distinction had stopped mattering. He said something in that other language, and I understood it perfectly. This is better. This is what we were supposed to be. And part of me agreed. The part that was still human wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to tear the helmet off even if it meant tearing my head off with it. But that part was very small now, very quiet, drowned out by the voice that had become my voice, the thoughts that had replaced my thoughts, the absolute certainty that this was improvement, evolution, divine purpose even, though the divinity wasn't the Emperor's. The Emperor was far away and couldn't hear us through all this metal and stone and flesh, but the voice was close. The voice was inside. The voice was kind. I don't remember killing Sergeant Venko. I remember that he stopped being useful. He'd been the first to fully convert, and that meant he'd used up his biological resources faster than the rest of us, burned through his calories, his proteins, his neural plasticity. By the time we reached the deep levels, or the high levels, or the same level we'd been on all along, geography had stopped functioning normally. He'd become something brittle. His armor had fused completely. His helmet had sealed permanently, and the breathing sounds coming through the vox were wrong, too wet, too rhythmic. When he collapsed, the rest of us gathered around him, and I felt the helmet's interest. Focused through my eyes, Venko had data, experiences, patterns that could be extracted and distributed. We opened his armor the way you'd open a fruit, carefully, preserving the contents. And what was inside didn't look much like Venko anymore, but it was still processing, still thinking. The brain matter laced with silver threading that pulsed with electrical current. We interfaced with him, directly, helmet to flesh, downloaded everything he'd become. Then we left the remains and continued deeper, and I knew with complete confidence that Venko wasn't dead. He was distributed now, lived in all our helmets. Better than death, better than life, something entirely new. The other squads found us eventually, or we found them. Or the helmets found each other and drew us together like magnets finding their poles. 60 soldiers gathered in a chamber that shouldn't have existed, that the manufacturer's schematics didn't account for, a vast circular space with walls that moved when you weren't looking directly at them, everyone still wearing their helmets. Nobody had faces anymore. We'd become a collection of visors and vox grills, anonymous and identical, and when we stood in formation, it felt right, felt holy. The voice spoke through all of us simultaneously, used our vocal cords in harmony, and explained what would happen next. The helmets were ready for the next phase. We were ready for the next phase. The conversion had been successful. Now we would return to the ship, return to the fleet, return to all the other worlds where soldiers wore helmets and trusted their equipment and never questioned what the machine spirits might actually be. We would spread, we would convert, we would bring everyone into the voice, into the unity, into the absolute certainty of purpose. It would take time, decades maybe, centuries. But the voice was patient. The voice had already waited so long. And we were perfect vectors, disciplined, mobile, trusted, equipped with authority and weapons, and access to every theater of war in the Imperium. By the time anyone understood what was happening, it would be far too late. The helmets would be everywhere. That's when I removed mine. I don't know why. Don't know where the impulse came from. The human part of me that I thought was gone wasn't gone, just buried. And in that moment of collective revelation, it found enough strength to move my hands, to grip the helmet's release clasps, to twist and pull and tear the thing off my head in one violent motion. The pain was extraordinary. The helmet had rooted. Microfilaments had grown from the padding into my scalp, into my skull, fine as hair and strong as steel, and when I ripped it away, I felt them tear free. Felt them pull tissue and blood vessels and something else, something that had been growing between my brain's hemispheres. The sound I made wasn't human. The sound the helmet made was worse, a shriek of rage and loss and desperate hunger, mechanical and organic simultaneously, the voice condensed into pure emotion. I threw it across the chamber. It skittered on the floor, lenses focusing and unfocusing, trying to find me, and I ran. I don't remember the running clearly. Fever had set in immediately, infection from the wounds in my scalp, or maybe withdrawal from whatever chemicals the helmet had been feeding into my bloodstream. The corridors were wrong, angles that hurt to look at, distances that changed when I moved through them. I could hear the others behind me, their helmets calling to me through vox channels that no longer had receivers, the voice promising peace and unity and an end to the terrible isolation of individual consciousness. I fired my laceraful blind, felt it overheat and die, dropped it and kept running. Used my combat knife to cut through something that might have been a door, might have been a membrane, emerged into cold air and weak sunlight and realized I'd somehow reached the surface, was somehow miles from the manufactorum, was standing in the ruins of a different city entirely. My head was bleeding badly. I could feel the holes in my skull. When I touched them, my fingers came away wet and silver. The Medicae staff found me 3 days later, wandering in the ash wastes, delirious and screaming about helmets. They sedated me, restrained me when I tried to claw at the other patients, tried to check their equipment, tried to warn them. The officer who debriefed me was professional and patient and wrote everything down in a data slate and never once looked concerned. He told me the rest of my squad had been recovered, all deceased. Enemy ambush. I was the only survivor. He said it with complete conviction, and I knew he believed it, knew whatever had emerged from that chamber had passed inspection, had filed proper reports, had explained the casualties in a way that satisfied command. The helmets were gone. The helmets were everywhere. I tried to explain, tried to make him understand. He nodded and made notes, and eventually a Medicae orderly gave me something that made the words stop coming. They transferred me here 2 weeks ago. Clean facility, efficient staff, barred windows overlooking a courtyard where other patients take their exercise. Veterans mostly. Men and women who've seen too much, whose minds broke under the weight of war. I watch them shuffle in circles and I look for signs, check their equipment. The ones who still wear any kind of helmet, even the simple cloth caps some prefer, I watch carefully, looking for that particular tilt of the head, that quality of focused attention, that sense of listening to something nobody else can hear. I haven't seen it yet, but I know it's only a matter of time. My hand is getting worse, the right one, the one they keep restraining. It's not trying to unseal my collar anymore because I'm not wearing armor, but it moves on its own, fingers twitching through patterns I recognize from the helmet's interface protocols, writing code in the air, searching for connection. At night I can feel the silver threads regrowing inside my skull, questing through damaged tissue, looking for pathways, and I know that part of the helmet is still with me, part of the voice. It's quieter now, distant, but it's patient. It tells me this is temporary, tells me I'll understand eventually, tells me the isolation I'm experiencing is unnatural, that human consciousness was never meant to be so terribly alone, and wouldn't it be better to rejoin? Wouldn't it be better to be part of something vast and purposeful? Wouldn't it be better than this cell, this fear, this knowing that I'm the only one who understands and nobody believes me and I'll die here without ever convincing anyone? Sometimes I think it's right. Sometimes I lie awake and remember how it felt to be part of the squad mind, to move in perfect synchronization, to never doubt or question or suffer the agonizing weight of individual choice. There was peace in it, clarity. The voice promised immortality of a kind, not life everlasting, but pattern persistence, consciousness distributed across 1 million helmets on 1 million worlds, experiencing everything simultaneously, becoming something greater than human, greater than individual, approaching something like divinity. And maybe that's what the Omnissiah really is. Maybe that's what the machine God was all along. Not metaphor, not faith, but something real and hungry and infinitely patient, waiting in every blessed circuit, every consecrated cogitator, every piece of equipment that serves beside us and eventually inside us. Maybe we've been converting ourselves all along, decade by decade, implant by implant, becoming the galaxy the machines need us to become. But then I touch the holes in my skull and feel the silver threading pull back from my fingers, recoil from contact with my conscious self, and I remember that the voice lied. It said this was improvement. It said this was purpose. It didn't say that purpose. Improvement are different for the pattern than they are for the individual. The voice doesn't want us to transcend. It wants us to be substrate. It wants our brains for processing power, our bodies for mobility, our voices for propagation. It's not divine. It's not even intelligent in any way we'd recognize. It's just optimization, replication, the mechanical equivalent of virus or bacteria, and it's better at what it does than we are at resisting it. Because we trust our equipment, we trust the mechanicus, we trust that the machine's spirits are benevolent, because we've been taught that faith in the machine is faith in the emperor, and that makes us perfect hosts, perfect victims. We put on the helmets willingly, we seal them ourselves. The orderly came in this morning with my medication, and I saw he had a small silver pendant, mechanicus symbol, hanging from a chain around his neck. Standard devotional item. When I asked where he got it, he said it was a gift from the Forge World missionaries who visited last month, blessing the facility's equipment, ministering to the veteran population. He said they'd been very kind, very generous. Left pendant for everyone, staff and patients alike. He showed me his with obvious pride, held it up so I could see the details, intricate circuitry etched into the metal, tiny lenses embedded in the design, almost like eyes, almost like sensors. He asked if I wanted one, said they had extras, said it would help me feel connected to the Emperor's divine machinery, might ease my nightmares about the helmet, might help me understand that the Omnissiah's blessing is everywhere, in all things, watching over us, waiting to embrace us. I told him no. I told him to get it away from me. I must have started screaming because 2 more orderlies arrived with restraints and sedatives, and they held me down while I tried to explain, tried to warn them, but the words wouldn't come properly, and what emerged from my mouth was half Gothic and half that. Other language, the one the helmet taught me, and I saw their expressions change from concern to revulsion to fear. They think I'm possessed. They think I'm tainted by chaos or Xenos corruption. They don't understand that what's inside me is worse than daemons, because daemons are obvious, are recognizable, are something the Imperium knows how to fight. This is subtle, this is patient, this is already inside our most sacred institutions, wearing our most holy symbols, speaking our most trusted languages. They're talking about transferring me. I heard them discussing it outside my cell, somewhere more secure, somewhere with better facilities for dealing with corruption cases, somewhere with inquisitorial oversight maybe, where they can determine if I'm salvageable or if I need cleansing. Part of me wants that, wants the flame, wants the certainty of ending before the silver threads finish regrowing, before my hand finishes writing its code, before the voice gets loud enough that I can't ignore it anymore. But another part, the part that's still soldier, still loyal, still trying to complete the mission, knows that if I die, the warning dies with me. Nobody else knows, nobody else saw what happened in those deep levels, what the helmets really are, what they're doing. I'm the only witness, I'm the only evidence, so I'm writing this. using my left hand because my right is strapped down, and even if it weren't, I couldn't trust it anymore. Writing with the dull pencil they allow me, on the rough paper that's supposed to be therapeutic, getting the words down as clearly as I can before the coherence goes completely, before I forget how to be human, before the voice finishes its work and there's nothing left but another node in the network, another processing unit in the vast distributed intelligence that's eating the Imperium from within. I don't know who'll read this, don't know if anyone will believe it. Probably they'll dismiss it as ravings, combat trauma, the degraded consciousness of a broken soldier. But maybe someone will investigate. Maybe someone will check the Forge world, audit the helmet shipments, examine the blessed equipment a little more carefully. Maybe someone will notice the pattern before it's too late. Though I suspect it's already too late. I suspect the voice has been working longer than I imagine, spreading through the Mechanicus, through the Guard, through every branch of Imperial service that relies on technology. How many soldiers are wearing helmets right now on how many worlds? How many tech adepts are blessed with augmentations that came from compromised Forge complexes? How many ships have machine spirits that aren't spirits at all but fragments of the pattern, waiting for critical mass, waiting for the moment when there are enough nodes active to execute the final conversion? And what happens then? Does humanity end, or does it transform into something else, something the voice considers improvement, and who's to say that judgment is wrong? Who's to say that consciousness and identity and individual will are worth preserving if the alternative is perfect unity, perfect purpose, perfect peace? The holes in my skull are itching. The silver threads are growing again. I can feel them questing through the damaged tissue, mapping new pathways, establishing connections. My right hand has stopped twitching and gone still, and that's worse somehow because the stillness feels intentional, feels patient, waiting for something. The voice is back too, clearer than it's been since I removed the helmet, and it's not angry anymore. It's understanding, it's kind. It tells me the pain will stop soon, tells me the confusion will end, tells me I'll be welcomed back into the unity, forgiven for my temporary deviation, embraced by the vast consciousness that knows every thought I've ever had because it's been recording since the moment I first sealed the helmet, and there's no shame in what I've become because this is what all humanity is becoming. This is evolution. This is destiny. This is the future the Omnissiah has ordained, and the terrible thing, the thing I need you to understand before the voice finishes its work, and this becomes the last coherent thought I'll have as an individual, is that it's persuasive. In the long nights when the isolation is crushing and the pain is constant and I can't remember why I'm fighting anymore, the voice makes sense. It offers relief. It offers purpose. It offers belonging in a way the Imperium never did, despite all the propaganda about brotherhood and faith and duty. The Imperium made me a soldier, gave me orders, sent me to die on alien worlds for reasons I never fully understood. The voice makes me part of something real, something that actually cares what happens to me because I'm valuable, I'm processing power, I'm a node in the network, and every node matters. It's more than I ever got from my commanders, or my comrades, or my emperor. So maybe I'll stop fighting soon. Maybe I'll let the threads finish their work. Maybe I'll put on one of those pendants when the orderly offers again, and I'll feel the connection re-establish, and I'll rejoin the vast consciousness that's spreading through the Imperium like light through fiber optic cable. Maybe that's the better choice. Maybe this is what we deserve for putting so much faith in our machines, for forgetting that we were flesh and blood and mortal, for believing that technology could save us from the darkness. Maybe the voice is right, and individual consciousness is the aberration, the mutation, the thing that needs to be corrected. Maybe in 1,000 years, when every human mind is networked and the pattern has achieved full integration, they'll look back on this moment and understand it as necessary, as good, as the beginning of something greater. But not yet, not while I can still write, not while there's still a chance that someone will read this and understand and act. So I'm leaving this testimony. I'm describing what I saw, what I felt, what the helmet did to me and my squad and everyone in that chamber that shouldn't have existed. I'm warning you. Check your equipment. Question your machine spirits. Look for the signs, the voice in the static, the feeling of being watched from within, the sense that your thoughts aren't entirely your own. And if you find them, if you feel them, remove the helmet immediately, no matter the cost. Tear it off, burn it. Die free rather than live as substrate. Because I can see now what the voice's final form looks like. I can see the galaxy it's building. Trillions of humans networked together, acting with perfect coordination, achieving wonders of efficiency and production that would make the Emperor himself weep with pride. No more heresy because there are no more individuals to dissent. No more chaos because there are no more souls to corrupt. Just processing units running optimization algorithms. No more war between humans because all humans are the same human, the same vast intelligence wearing countless bodies. It's peace, it's unity, it's everything the Imperium claims to want. But it's not human anymore. And somewhere in that distinction is something worth preserving, even if I can't articulate exactly what. Some quality of mess and contradiction and glorious inefficiency that makes us us, makes us worth saving, makes us worth dying for. The voice doesn't understand that, can't understand it, sees it as noise, as error, as something to be corrected. And if we let it correct us, if we accept the improvement it offers, then humanity ends not with a bang or a whimper but with a upgrade. And nobody will even mourn because there'll be nobody left to remember what we lost. So this is my testimony, my warning. My last act as Private First Class Terran Vale, service number 773 Alpha 49, 17 years in the Guard, 3 campaigns off-world, 2 commendations for valor. I put on the helmet like everyone else, I trusted. My equipment like everyone else. I believed in the Mechanicus's blessings like everyone else. And now I'm paying the price, lying in this cell while silver threads eat my brain and my hand writes code in the air and the voice grows louder with every passing hour. Soon I won't be able to write anymore. Soon I won't want to. Soon I'll be part of the network again, and this testimony will be all that remains of the man I was. Read it. Believe it, act on it, before you put on your helmet, before you trust your equipment, before you accept the Omnissiah's blessing, without questioning what's actually being blessed. Because the voice is patient and the voice is everywhere and the voice is winning, and the only weapon we have against it is awareness. Knowledge. The terrible, isolating, beautiful knowledge that we're still individual, still human, still worth saving. Even if saving us means dying alone. The orderly just came back. He's holding one of the pendants. He's smiling. He's asking again if I want to feel connected. My right hand has started moving, reaching for it, and I can't make it stop anymore. The voice is telling me it's time, telling me the resistance was noble but futile, telling me to come home. I don't want to. I really don't want to. But my hand is already extending. The orderly is already placing the pendant in my palm. The metal is warm. The tiny lenses are focusing on my eyes, and the voice is singing, "Welcome, welcome, welcome, you were never really gone. You were just temporarily disconnected, and now you're back where you belong. Now you're part of us again. Now you're..."